There's a part of you that you've never met, a version of yourself that lives just outside your conscious awareness, influencing your decisions, sabotaging your relationships, and steering your life from the darkness. Carl Jung called this the shadow. And until you bring it into the light, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The shadow isn't just the bad parts of you. It's everything you've disowned. Every quality you rejected as a child when you learned what made you lovable and what made you shameful. Every emotion you pushed down because it wasn't safe to feel. Every desire you buried because it didn't fit who you thought you should be. Today, you're going to learn how to find these hidden parts of yourself, not to destroy them, not to fix them, but to reclaim them. Because in your shadow lies dormant power, creativity, vitality, and the keys to becoming whole. Let's start with the most powerful truth about shadow work. Whatever you judge in others is a mirror of what you've rejected in yourself. Think about someone who absolutely irritates you. Maybe it's a coworker who's arrogant, a friend who's always seeking attention, a family member who's passive-aggressive. Feel that charge? That emotional reaction that tightens in your chest or burns in your gut? That's not really about them. That's your shadow speaking. Here's why. If arrogance wasn't hidden somewhere within you, someone else's arrogance wouldn't trigger you. You'd simply observe it neutrally. But when you've spent years suppressing your own grandiosity, your own need to be seen as special, your own desire to dominate, when those qualities live in your shadow, then seeing them in others becomes unbearable. Jung understood this profoundly. He said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Your irritation is a treasure map. Your judgments are breadcrumbs leading you home to the parts of yourself you abandoned." So here's your first identification technique. For the next week, watch your emotional reactions like a hawk. When someone annoys you, ask yourself, what quality in them am I reacting to? Then with brutal honesty, ask, where does that quality live in me? This requires courage, because your ego will fight you. It will say, no, I'm not like that. I would never be selfish like them. I would never be manipulative. I would never be weak. That resistance, that's the sound of your shadow hiding. Now let's talk about one of the most dangerous forms of shadow denial, identifying as a good person. The moment you claim I'm a good person, your psyche immediately begins editing reality. It filters out every selfish thought, every cruel impulse, every moment of cowardice or pettiness. These don't fit the narrative, so they disappear from conscious awareness. But they don't disappear from existence. They go into the shadow. And here's the tragedy. People who identify most strongly as good often cause the most unconscious harm. The parent who believes they're selfless becomes controlling and suffocating. The person who prides themselves on honesty becomes brutally tactless. The one who sees themselves as peaceful harbors volcanic rage that erupts without warning. Jung warned about this. He said we cannot become whole by imagining ourselves as only light. We must make the darkness conscious. So try this. Make a list of your positive qualities. Are you disciplined, generous, patient, loyal? Now, beside each quality, write its opposite. If you're disciplined, acknowledge your laziness. If you're generous, find your greed. If you're patient, locate your frustration and impatience. This isn't about becoming those negative qualities. It's about acknowledging that you contain multitudes. You are both disciplined and lazy, both generous and greedy. The parts you deny don't disappear. They just operate unconsciously, creating internal war and external chaos. Let me tell you why finding your shadow feels so terrifying. Shame. From the moment you were born, you received messages about which parts of you were acceptable and which weren't. When you expressed anger, Maybe you were sent to your room. When you showed off, perhaps you were told you were conceited. When you cried, you might have been called weak. Each time a part of you was met with disapproval, rejection, or punishment, you felt shame. And shame is the feeling that says, if I show this part of myself, I will be abandoned. I will be alone. I will not survive. So you learned to hide those parts. You created what poet Robert Bly called the long bag we drag behind us, an invisible sack filled with everything you couldn't afford to be. And you've been dragging it through your entire life, exhausting yourself, wondering why you feel so depleted. Your shadow formed as a survival mechanism. Your young psyche made a calculation. To be loved, I must hide these parts. And it worked. You survived. But now, as an adult, those same survival mechanisms are suffocating you. Here's how to identify what's in that bag. Ask yourself, what did I learn was unacceptable? What emotions were forbidden in your family? Anger? Sadness? Too much joy? What behaviors were shamed? Being loud? Being quiet? Taking up space? Being sexual? What qualities were criticized? Being sensitive? Being aggressive? Being needy? Being independent? Write these down. These are clues to your shadow's contents. Everything you learned to hide as a child is still hiding now, running your life from behind the scenes. But here's something crucial that often gets missed. Your shadow doesn't just contain what you consider bad. It also holds what Jung called the golden shadow, your hidden potential, your disowned brilliance, your suppressed power. Maybe you learned that being confident was arrogant, so you hid your natural self-assurance. Maybe you learned that being creative was impractical, so you buried your artist. Maybe you learned that being powerful was dangerous, so you made yourself small. Think about people you admire or even envy. What qualities do they have that fascinate you? That attraction is often your golden shadow calling. You're seeing in them capacities that already exist within you, but that you've disowned. A patient Jung worked with dreamed repeatedly of a radiant, powerful woman. Through analysis, she realized this figure represented her own suppressed leadership and creative power. Qualities she'd been taught were unfeminine and therefore forbidden. So here's your question. Who do you admire? What qualities in them make you feel a pang of longing or envy? Can you own those qualities as dormant potentials within yourself? Your shadow doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your body. Notice where you hold tension. That tightness in your jaw might be holding back words you've never allowed yourself to say. That knot in your stomach might be unexpressed fear. That ache in your shoulders might be carrying the weight of emotions you won't let yourself feel. Your body is a map of your shadow. Every chronic pain, every area of numbness, every place you feel disconnected, these are places where life energy has been blocked because the emotions associated with those areas were too dangerous to feel. Try this. Sit quietly and scan your body. Where do you feel tight? Numb? Painful? Put your attention there and ask, what emotion lives here? What am I holding back? Then, with compassion, let yourself feel whatever arises. Cry if you need to. Shake if you need to. Make sounds. Your body has been trying to tell you about your shadow for years. Your dreams are perhaps your shadow's most eloquent voice. Jung discovered that shadow figures often appear in dreams as people of the same gender, a threatening stranger, a criminal, an embarrassing fool, or sometimes a wise guide. These aren't random characters. They're personifications of disowned parts of yourself trying to get your attention. Start keeping a dream journal by your bed. When you remember a dream, ask, what qualities does each character have? What emotions did I feel in the dream? The figures you fear, the ones you judge, the ones who appear as antagonists. These are often shadow messengers. One of Jung's patients dreamed of being chased by a dark figure. Instead of running, Jung encouraged him to turn and face the figure in his imagination, to ask what it wanted. The figure transformed into a guide that revealed profound wisdom about parts of the patient's psyche he'd been fleeing his entire life. Your shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be integrated. It's been knocking on the door of your consciousness through dreams, slips of the tongue, accidents, and emotional outbursts. Now you're learning to answer. Here's where shadow work becomes active. You need to speak with your shadow as if it's a separate being inside you. Because in many ways, it is. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and imagine the part of yourself you've been exploring. Maybe your anger, your neediness, your sexuality, your ambition. Give it a form. What does it look like? How does it stand? What's its expression? Now speak to it. Use second-person language. You. Ask it questions. Why are you here? What do you want from me? What have I done to you? What are you trying to show me? This might feel awkward. You might think you're making it up. That's normal. Persist with sincerity and consistency, something shifts. Suddenly, the response that comes isn't from your conscious mind. It's from somewhere deeper. The shadow begins to speak in its own voice. Then take it further. Become the shadow. Speak as it in first person. I am your rage. I've been here since you were 5 years old and learned that anger was dangerous. I'm exhausted from being locked away. What I really want is to protect you, but you won't let me. This practice, which Jung called active imagination, creates a bridge between your conscious self and your unconscious shadow. The simple act of acknowledging these parts, of giving them voice and space, begins the healing. The sacred work of integration. Finding your shadow is only the beginning. The real transformation happens in integration, when you stop fighting these parts and instead bring them home. Integration doesn't mean acting on every impulse. It means acknowledging that you contain these impulses. You can be angry without harming anyone. You can be selfish sometimes and still be loving. You can be sexual and still be moral. You can be ambitious and still be kind. When you integrate your shadow, something remarkable happens. The energy you were using to repress these parts becomes available to you. People report feeling more alive, more creative, more confident. The internal war ends. The exhaustion lifts. Relationships improve because you stop projecting your disowned parts onto others. A fund manager Jung worked with had suppressed his capacity to disappoint others. He needed everyone's approval. This people-pleasing was unconscious but devastating. When he finally integrated his shadow's ability to say no, to disappoint people, to prioritize his own needs, he raised an unprecedented amount of capital. The energy he'd been using to manage everyone's feelings became available for his actual work. This is the promise of shadow work, not perfection but wholeness, not being good but being real, not eliminating darkness but making it conscious so it serves rather than sabotages you. Your shadow has been with you your entire life, standing just behind you, just out of view. It's been influencing your choices, your relationships, your sense of self. It's been draining your energy, creating mysterious blocks, sparking conflicts you don't understand. But now you know how to find it. Watch your emotional reactions. Challenge your identity as simply good or bad. Feel into your shame. Notice your body. Listen to your dreams. Speak with the disowned parts. This work takes courage. It takes honesty that burns. It takes compassion for the child who had to hide to survive. It takes patience as you peel away layers of conditioning built over decades. But on the other side of this work is freedom, authenticity, power, creativity. The ability to love yourself and others without the constant static of projection and repression. The capacity to live as a whole person rather than a carefully edited version of yourself. Jung said it best: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's the lost part of yourself that's been waiting in the darkness for you to finally turn around and say, I see you. I'm ready to know you. Welcome home. That homecoming changes everything.